So welcome, Wendy, to For the Love of Group Fitness podcast. I'm really happy to connect with you and to spend this time with you, just having a conversation about our love for the industry that we find ourselves in for many, many years.
Yes.
So for our listeners, where in the world are you?
Well, first of all, thank you, NC. It's an honor to be on your pod. I love pods. I listen to a lot of them about our industry and especially yoga. I am located in Northern California, on the West Coast, of the United States,
Yes.
just outside of the capital of the state. So I'm near Sacramento
Mhm.
as you're going up towards Lake Tahoe. So it's very
Very
pretty,
nice.
kind of rural where I am.
Mhm.
And I've lived here since 1997.
So you're originally from California?
Yes, born and raised in Northern
Oh.
California. Yep.
Awesome. And we just had a chat. So for listeners who are listening in, Wendy and I have never met at all in the flesh. We've met on social media, and
Yeah,
that's one of the lovely things about social media, I think, is that sometimes we feel connected with people, and could be anywhere in the world, right?
I
And we end
agree
up
with
having
that.
this relationship, and then we've actually never met in person.
Well, yeah, to that point about our friend KG, the cohort or the group that I was with for that 12 weeks, let's see, some of us are in the south of the United States. One or two people were in Australia and New Zealand. Someone was in Nova Scotia, and then someone else in the East Coast. And we are still very close,
Yes.
even though we've never met face to face. There's just some kind of bonding that happens, I think, in certain workshop settings or discussions like this. I don't know, you just connect with certain people.
Absolutely. I mean, I believe in energy anyway, right? And I
Yeah.
think that, energy attracts and can repel
Do,
as
do
well.
you think that COVID, because I know most of us had to go online in our industry during that time frame to
Mm-hmm.
teach, do you think that it helped make more long distance threads and connections like this happen because we were sort of forced to be online for longer? Did that
I
make it help?
think, yeah, I do think it helped. I
Yeah.
think it helped. Because I also have a network marketing business. And so with that, I was using Zoom for quite a few years prior
Mhm.
to lockdown anyway. And
Mhm.
so there were connections made that way. But I think it opened it up more. I know that with like some of the yoga teachers that I've worked with, etc., it's like, go online. What's that? Yeah. you know.
It was a bit daunting for me to teach from my old living room, not this one,
Yeah.
to my camera,
Yes.
knowing I'm not, I'm knowing that people are watching me, but I'm not making that real person to person connection that I'm used to making. So that took
Yeah.
some getting used to for sure.
Yeah, it was, right? But then like now I think it's great. And at my studio, all our classes are hybrid.
Mm,
So we have them on Zoom as well as in person at the same
I
time,
love that.
which is really great to be able to
Yeah.
offer that, not just for people further afield, but for, people who for health conditions or
Mhm.
childcare, etc., and they
Mhm.
can't actually get out of the house.
Right.
It's really handy, I think. So, yeah. So, okay, so let's go back to basics for our
Okay.
listeners. Tell us a little bit about you, your story. How did you end
Okay.
up where you are now?
The condensed version.
Yeah.
So, let's see, I do come from a performance and dance background
Okay.
originally. And, then I became a parent, and excuse me, group fitness suddenly became an option for me as a parent and juggling things. And I immediately fell in love with teaching spin, which is very odd because cardio was never my thing, right?
Mhm.
So fell in love with the idea that I could create my own playlists. And I always told this joke, well, this is then, I'm older now, but I always told the joke, I have the perfect job. I get to wear tight clothes, play really loud rock and roll, and yell at people. It was the perfect job. But then I went into the mind-body realm more, and that's really where I stayed for the last 20 years. And then Les Mills came into my life, actually more recently than not. It was 2019. I always tell the story that I was proud of the fact, and I still am, that I'm a freestyle yoga teacher. That's always been my thing. And so for me to be invited to do the body balance training, I was kind of like, I don't know if that fits my jam. And I did it with lokah who is a great,
Yes, he's
great
lovely.
trainer. And it was during COVID, so I didn't have anything else going on. And it was a fantastic training, remote. And that training and teaching that format, not to promote it overly, but it really transformed all of my other teaching in a way that I didn't anticipate. And then also at the same time, I fell back in love with group cycling, and I have a passion for the trip.
Yes.
So those are the two things that I'm grateful to Les Mills, that they kind of reinvigorated me at a later part in my teaching career. I have a passion for both of those. I taught both of those just before I saw you tonight. Maybe that's why I'm glowing.
You're glowing. You're glowing. I mean, I totally get that, because I was approached back in 1998, I think it was, to be involved. Would I look at this thing called body balance?
Crazy.
And I was freestyle. I was yoga,
Yeah.
and I was doing freestyle fitness.
Yeah.
And mind body fitness, and they sent me a VHS of body balance 1.
Wow.
And I looked at it and I thought, oh, this is terrible. They're trying to do yoga to music. and then I didn't hear anything more. And then about a year later, I was contacted again, and they sent me body balance 7 to look at, and I still thought the same thing. But then I caught myself going, hang on a minute, let's be open-minded and let's just see. I'm being invited along to the training for free, to see if I would like to be involved. And I took myself to Body Pump before, just to find out a little bit more about Les Mills.
Yes.
And it transformed the way I looked at any kind of presentation. Yeah. That's what Body Pump did for me. And I was lecturing at the university at the time, and it changed the way I planned my lectures even.
Yes.
And then when I did Body Balance, it was just like, now I've done the training, I get it. Whereas as an outsider looking in, it was just like, oh, the yoga to music.
I think the first few that I looked at were very old releases, and for me, they still felt a little, Jimmy.
Yeah.
But I can see the evolution of how the program has evolved over time. To me, it's really amazing and beautiful that, that Diane and Jackie, that they've been so open to, like, again, these younger teachers now coming up through the program and making it current and still relevant. I just find it still a really wonderful program to teach. I may not love every single track or every song, but I really do connect with that style. What it's done for me is it's helped how I structure everything now.
Okay.
Even as a freestyler, I still choose my music in a way that is, it's built in a way that's kind of that way now. So I'm really grateful to that program.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that prior to becoming a parent, you were into performance and dance.
Yes.
So do you think that having that sort of background helped you to connect with the Les Mills programs and using music with your classes?
Yes. I mean, it isn't even an accident, but one of the places I teach, we have a stage, I'm elevated. And even when I teach in my smaller space now, I teach on a mic pack. The whole thing for me has to be an experience for them from start to finish. And even in the details, even in the fairy lights around my mat, or as I said, now I'm playing instruments as when I'm teaching. And so I have a cajon drum, shruti box, harmonium. I use these instruments now in my yoga teaching, not in my club teaching as much, but that's the other thing. I think as you get older, you find these context of where you're teaching may change. For example, when you're on stage at a Les Mills event versus at your home studio, the context, the people, the audience is different.
Absolutely. So when you're well, you've been in the industry a long time, right? How have you seen the shift over the years for you personally?
Such a good question. So, there is a darker side to this industry. It's competitive. And even in yoga, I call it the fourth wall or the veil. Sometimes we don't want our participants and our members ever to see that, right? But sometimes things can go on over here. And so it's such a good question. I think learning to maneuver or maybe not be as affected by some of that stuff or drama or egos or whatever it is. I think that can come with maturity. I've gotten better at boundaries in the industry, or saying no, I won't teach for that much, or owning your worth, things of that nature. I've gotten better at over time. I still think it's a young person's game, but that's just the nature of it in a way. So again, I think, what can I offer back? How can I then be a mentor to these kiddos that are coming up behind me? I want to be an inspiration to them. When people find out that I'm 62, they're usually surprised. So I don't like hearing, you look great for your age, but just, you look great. No matter what size anyone is, that they're doing their best for themselves. That's the goal for me. It's not how they look or what they weigh. It's just to try to do our best as we age in these bodies, really, right?
So absolutely. Do you think then? I mean, like, I know, like, what I bring to the industry and how I let things affect me or not, etc. That has changed over the years as I've matured. I wonder with the industry itself, you talk about like it's a young industry, etc. I don't know, has that changed much, do you think? Or has it got worse? Has it got better?
I don't know.
And in your part of the world, right? Because I'm in the UK. And
yeah,
you're in
it's,
the US.
well, California is just known for being very vain and all that anyway. So
Right.
it may be more that way in the bubble that I live in. I was going to answer that. I think that when I started, and probably yourself too, in this industry, there wasn't social media yet, right?
No, yeah,
So,
there wasn't at all when I joined the industry.
Yeah. So the way that we were out there was as a live teacher, period, really. So yes, it's transformed a lot in that sense. Like, look at the micro and the macro possibilities. I mean, you're all over the world now. That's amazing. So I do think it's changed a lot in certain regards, but in my day-to-day interactions, I still have to at my studios or clubs, I'm still, aware of personalities and just all that stuff, and trying to just be more neutral, less judgmental.
I was talking to my other half. We were watching something on television last night, and it's a historical program,
Mhm.
and you see people fighting their egos, power,
Yeah.
and I just thought maybe it's just like a human condition, that deep down some of these things just don't change. They get exaggerated. Like I think
Yeah.
social media exaggerates
Yes.
these things.
Yes.
But that's part of being human, maybe all this power struggles and egos and, look at me. And I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, in yoga sometimes because I'm not very woo-woo when I use that
Yeah, I'm
word.
not. I get it.
But I'll hear people say, ridding oneself of the ego. While I am more Buddhist leaning in how my beliefs tend to be, I still think that it's a healthy thing to have a certain amount of ego. It keeps us in check. It keeps us accountable to ourselves and to the people we work with. So I think having no ego isn't really realistic.
No, I think it's who we are, right? I
Yeah.
think it's our ego, and so with anything, I think it comes down to intention
Yes.
and what you
Yes.
bring to it. So this, we were chatting. So for listeners, Andy and I were just chatting before I pressed record, and we kind of said that this industry, especially not just the group fitness industry, the yoga industry, is a bit like a love relationship, isn't it?
Yeah. It is.
We can fall out.
I've tried to break up with it several times.
We try and break up with it, we fall out of
Yeah.
love with it,
Yeah.
and all of that, and yet we still come back
Yeah.
to it.
And to that, yeah.
What brings you back to it?
I mean, I'm so keenly aware of that now, more than ever. I think it's just really important that we know our why. And the why can shift and change over the years, and probably does. But if I lose touch with what am I doing this for? Because it certainly isn't always the scratch or the money, right? It has to be something more, especially as a yoga teacher. So my why that always brings me back is the need to make a difference and to serve people of all walks. For example, tomorrow I get to go serve some women who are, shall we say, in recovery with their children in a safe place.
Nice.
I get to go serve that community. And for me, it almost feels selfish because of how rewarding that is. These are ladies that wouldn't be able to afford a yoga studio or a club. So for me, I still have to feel like I'm giving back, even though I'm trying to monetize my work life, and finding that balance.
I think
Yeah.
just to follow on from what you're saying about your why, and I think that is so important when it comes to sustainability in this industry, right? Because otherwise it's just, because if your why's, like you say, all about making money, then
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be doing what I'm doing today.
Because
the easier ways.
Or if it was just about, and this is interesting side path, but when I started to get really into my yoga practice, that was about 2006 or 7, and I went to hot yoga in my community, to really lean out and to do, sweat and do all the hard physical stuff. That was kind of new then, that idea. And Bikram was newer then. But what ended up happening that I didn't expect to happen was I started changing on the inside. And so then that's when my real journey with yoga began, as far as this really isn't about how it looks or, the outfit you're wearing. I mean, we all want to look great when we're on stage or being filmed, of course.
Mm.
But ultimately, the practice just isn't about that, is it?
No.
And now, if you don't know your why over time, then I don't think it is sustainable to be in this industry
Mm. Is that
for long.
yeah, so is that something that you have always been quite conscious of? Why? Because you said you started, I think a lot is really
Yeah.
common. A lot of people start in the industry because you've got young children and it fits.
Yeah.
But then why then do you stay when the kids get
Yes.
older, right? So were
Yes,
you always
because
conscious of your why?
no,
Okay.
no, that's such a good question, actually. I think it was first about, oh, this fits in with my life and my kids, and my kids are older now, they have their own lives. Why then was I staying in it? Well, I did pretty good as a Pilates trainer on the equipment and kind of in a real niche industry. But even then, that's just still not enough. I mean, I do have a college degree, so there's other skill sets and hard skills that I have that I use online for other types of work, like writing. But I just feel that I still am trying to make a difference out here somehow. That's still my why. And I guess when that fire, well, I will say this, I am looking now for alternative ways to be in our industry where I'm using my body less and this more.
Yeah, the mind, yeah.
Or this more, whatever. But
Or the heart.
in other words, the body isn't going to last forever. And my teaching has changed. I teach slow flow more now, and kind of this, more intention, I think would be the word you just used. Yeah.
So is that kind of links quite nicely into this whole aging in this industry,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
There is a side of me that sometimes goes, oh, I can still do that. And then when you try it, you go, yeah, no.
It's so funny about that. I think there's a picture somewhere on my Facebook of me. It's a pose. Well, actually, it's just side crow, but your legs are flared out.
Yes.
I call it a high point pose, right? High value pose. It looks
was
fantastic.
that your black and white photograph? Is that the black and white
yes,
photograph?
that's one of them. Yeah. But the thing is, and I can do that on my paddleboard too. But the thing is, I'm really only good at it on one side because my body, of course, we all have one side we're more, right? So I just find it funny that I could still demonstrate, certain things, but like, for example, I won't do wheel anymore. I won't demo it. I won't do it. My body will not like me later.
Okay.
And I
so you
think
can get into it, but not later.
I can do but I'll pay for it later. And I think that's the part that I'm now figuring out. I can't or don't want to really do or compete with the gorgeous 23-year-old who can stand on one fingernail. I don't need to anymore. Don't have to prove anything about it. It's beautiful to watch her do it or him do it. But I have to understand my limitations now if I want to kind of go the distance in yoga. You know what I mean? So that your body lasts.
Yeah. And I remember my yoga teacher saying that his yoga teacher, which is Krishnamacharya for those who are in the yoga world, and used to say that, the point of yoga practice is so we get to know ourselves, and we learn to live with foresight rather than live in hindsight. And so it's like that, like going, yeah, I can do it, but I'll pay for it later, so therefore I'll choose not to.
Right. And also then, is it about ego, right? So I'm up on the stage but also when I'm performing or teaching, it does feel like your adrenaline is up and you're feeling good. You're in your zone. But just knowing, I think you're right, foresight, like, oh, I'm going to pay for that later. I think I'll do less of that one. That comes with time, I think. Yeah.
It's practicing discernment, isn't it?
Discernment.
Discernment, that's the word, my word.
I used it again. I
year or
used
so.
that word a couple of days ago with someone, but in the context we were speaking about discerning in our industry. I want to put this the right way. People who we would prefer to work alongside and people we might not, and
Yes.
having then the maturity of that discernment also over time. I've learned a lot about that over the years.
Yeah.
Being able to kind of read, does this feel like the right setting or situation for me to teach in? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier on that one about energy, and so sometimes, energetically something just doesn't feel right for me. I do find now, as I'm older, I tend to sit with things a lot longer before I make a decision. Rather than, when I was younger, I just say yes to everything. And, and in some ways it's a good thing, right? Because it's part of the learning process, because you learn so much and so quickly when you just throw yourself into stuff. But you get to a certain point and you just go, no. Been there, done that.
Been there, done that, and the t-shirt. No, I think discernment is really an important part of being in our industry long term. And on the business side, I've learned a lot about kind of how you conduct yourself in this industry, because I don't know about where you live, but the pool of teachers in my area, while it's large, I think that things like reputations, if you aren't working, let's say, ethically in the industry, that's a big word for me. Integrity and ethics matter. How we treat others matter, because it can always come back your way, right? You want to do the right thing. And I think that's, again, just kind of comes with time. And setting the example for example, for the teachers who you're bringing up, and the ways you've taught them just by your example.
So with that in mind, aging actually is a benefit, for want of a better word, for the industry, the aging instructor, because we bring all of that to the industry for the younger generation, and yet the industry itself might not appreciate it as much. Do you find that?
That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, you're kind of in a wider net even than myself. So from your observation, do you find that it's just getting younger, or that ageism is real? Because I find that it's real, but it's subtle and it's hard to prove.
Absolutely.
So
I agree with you where I am. I think it's I think it also depends on the circle. So from, I've been quite public with sharing my thoughts on social media about stuff, and when instructors comment back, I think it depends on their circle. So like, I have my own studio, so it's not apparent there. Do you see what I mean? Because it's not our culture. And some other instructors who have their own studios have said that they don't notice it because it's their business, right? And they've created a different culture.
I agree.
Then when we look at certain programs and from the business side of the industry, there are lots of brands out there, and some brands, whether it's clothing brands through to workout brands, they have their own culture. Which, if I put my business hat on, I understand that we always have a target market, right? And so when you have a target market, then you need to do what you can to entice, to serve that target market.
And retain.
And so you need people of a certain, on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
And certain businesses might not be that interested in retention, because you can look at getting people in,
Right.
and fill your bucket, and you're not that bothered about the
Who
holes
you
and the
lose.
drips and who
Yeah.
you lose.
Yeah.
Clubs have it, right? Most health
Yeah.
clubs,
Yes.
there's always attrition of people that
Yes.
leave.
Yes.
So we can focus on plugging the holes and stopping the leak, or we can focus on the business from just bringing new people in the whole time. So I think it
So where
depends
do
on the business model.
But where do you see then that people that have been in the industry a longer time, where do you how can we best serve the industry, knowing what we know, that we have knowledge, wisdom, experience?
Yeah.
That's a great selling point.
It is, absolutely, it is. And I know industry-wise, certainly in the UK, there are some advocates now really lobbying for this, right? That more senior experienced instructors should be appreciated. I think going back, for me personally, I think going back to the whole analogy of this is a love affair, is that at some point, for our own health and well-being, that we need to, part ways, I think. Not necessarily the industry as a whole, but with certain, like you say, you talked about discernment, right? About who I refer to people and situations as, are they radiators or are they drains?
Ooh, I'm writing that down.
I want to be radiators. And so at some point,
yes,
I find I may outgrow a relationship.
And
So which happens, because we have friends, right, that you might have when you're younger, that you've just outgrown the relationship. You don't hate them anymore, but you've just outgrown each other, right? And so I think that will naturally happen the longer we are in the industry, I think.
And then here's the piece, and what you're saying reminds me of the thing I just posted on about coming out of a situation, and I'll be very vague on that I was very heart invested in. And when that suddenly unraveled, not because of me, but just the scenario, I have this distinct feeling that, for lack of a better word, God/universe, I was literally lifted up and pulled off the chessboard and kind of put down. I almost visualize it in that way, that my teacher always said, this wasn't for you. That wasn't for you.
No.
But I think when I was younger, I would bump up into that idea. Well, yes, it was. And I'd really fight for it and, advocate. In this case, the right thing for me to do was walk away. And I did, and with integrity, I feel. So I think those are the things that have come for me over time, is like you said, kind of not reacting right away. Understanding if something is for you or not, and then it's okay if it's not, right? Accepting that stuff is hard, I think, sometimes when something's not for you.
It is, and especially like you said, when you're really emotionally invested in it.
Yeah.
But then it's like the relationship, it's like it could be a one-way affair, right?
Yeah. That's
that you're so invested in it.
You got cheated on, or whatever it was.
You've given everything to this industry, and you're like, come on, but then that's the expectation.
Yes.
That we're expecting something back, when actually we shouldn't. We should be doing it, as a result. And I'm not saying it's not hard. I think,
right.
I absolutely. And there've been lots of tears shed along the way.
But I will say this about the arc of at least my yoga teaching, mostly. Actually, in all of my group fitness, some of my biggest lessons and tests, but lessons have been kind of, how do I say, the negative ones. In other words, I've had teachers that weren't walking in ethics or integrity or alignment with the principles or the 8 limbs, or I've observed some of that stuff and sort of learned what not to do or how not to be. And those teachers and people have been some of my biggest lessons
Absolutely.
Not known to themselves, of course, but
Yeah.
because you have the mentors that and guides that you look up to, like a KG or some of my other teachers, but certainly I still in my head think of things. No, I shouldn't conduct. I should not make that choice based on past experience. So I think that stuff informs who we are now, and hopefully, and one more point on that. At one point, I was in a relationship that it was fairly abusive. It's kind of a deep share, but I was teaching at a really high level of yoga at that time. My life was not in alignment with what I was saying and modeling and teaching. And so I think that as an older or vet instructor, senior teacher, however you want to call it, I think I've tried to bring those two parts of my life, it's more or less, so that I'm walking the walk, or at least trying to, you know what I'm saying? I'm not living a split screen.
Yeah, and that's so
that feels
apparent.
lighter and better.
Definitely. And I think the thing with social media is that sometimes we see stuff as we're scrolling, but that's not necessarily real life.
We're comparing.
And we compare, but then we're at a different stage in our life to that other person, or that other person, we don't really know what you might not post everything, you just post the good stuff.
Yeah, we all have a backstory. Yeah,
there's always a backstory. Yeah, absolutely.
I do think that social media can, I have a daughter that's 19, my kids are in their 20s. I think that the comparing, and I don't want to use the word body shaming, but just the sort of constant comparing of a type or a physical ideal, all that stuff is definitely more present than when we started in the industry. What are your feelings about kind of how social media has impacted our generation of instructors?
I think we probably, we got away with it because there isn't this the images, etc. However, saying that, I was this is my freestyle day, so before I joined Les Mills, and I was presenting in the fitness industry. I was told to, I used to weigh, like my weight back then, I used to weigh like 100 pounds. I was small, right? And I was told I had to lose weight. I had to get a tan to be on stage, and there was all of that way back then.
Yeah.
As well, and when I was lecturing at university, excuse me.
Bless you.
Oh,
that's a cute sneeze.
There was a student who wanted to do a dissertation, a degree research on disordered eating amongst instructors.
Okay.
This is the early mid-90s, late 90s. Couldn't get it off the ground because the instructors either didn't want to fill the questionnaires out or they weren't truthful.
Yeah.
I think what social media has done is it's made things worse because it's more blatant. So I think that stuff was always there. But if you've got insecurities about yourself or anything like that, it's just made so much worse, I feel, with social media. And I mean, I do love social media. I think there's lots of pluses to it.
Yeah. Yes.
But like any tool, you need to use it well and with good intention.
I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think so. Looking forwards, then, Wendy, for yourself in terms of we're all going to get older, etc. How would you love the industry to evolve?
Well, it's interesting, Nancy. Again, context. So I work in a fairly high-end luxury spa club. That's where I teach my Les Mills classes. And I don't expect that culture to change that much over time. Instructors move up and in, and instructors, have babies and leave, or it's the constant arc of instructors in a bigger setting. So at one point, I probably won't work in a club anymore. I do it because it's still really fun for me to be there. I love my team. And the members have been at this particular place 4 years. So you have your members that come, and it's easy and fun. And I love getting the new releases. And so that, I think, actually, I will say this about aging and the brain. I have to learn these releases now, NC, and my tracking for choreo, I was a dancer, right? But now that body balance, I can kind of learn the trip fast, but body balance is some pretty hard choreo sometimes. I have to really learn those releases. And I think, again, that's keeping me sharp in my other teaching. I'm tracking sides longer and better. And then it's just really helped a lot, I think, keeping you sharp. As far as me outside of that setting, my goals are shifting, as we talked before you hit record, into more the energetic work and the other limbs of our yoga. So pranayama, just obsessed with Yoga Nidra. Love Yoga Nidra. As a person who leans towards flow, yin and nidra, those things are very good for me to do. But then the surprise for me has been that I'm coming back into playing music in my classes, drumming, and now I'm doing kirtans. And those are becoming events that I'm doing at people's homes or in other studios now. And that's been really exciting and unexpected in the last year. So I feel like I'm still growing somewhere inside of the industry, even if it's not doing more teacher trainings, or I'm still in it somehow. I don't know where it's going to take me next.
Yeah, I think we constantly evolve and we grow. And
I think you have to.
I think we have to. And I think, we'll just, all the knowledge and experience that we have, we can share with the industry. We just need to find a different
if they're listening.
Modality.
Yeah.
I think they will. For me, I guess for me, I put it out there anyway. I said to you before, just throw stuff out there and see what sticks,
I love that. I love that you're doing a pod, it's important.
And get the message out there, right? Because, and if it resonates with one person, I always think that then, I've achieved something, right? And but your whole, going back to, like you're saying, you're playing music and stuff again now, it's almost like they're full circle moments, but a fuller and more vibrant full circle moment, because now you've got all this lived experience that you're bringing back to what you used to do.
You're reminding me, because you said something about what your teacher and his teacher said. You're reminding me right now of what my teacher and friend said to me. And I'm sure she's not the first person that said it, but that's who I took it from. She said, and it didn't make sense to me at the time, but she said, we practice yoga for our students and we teach yoga for ourselves. And I thought, isn't it the other way around, that we practice for ourselves and we teach for them? And she said, no, stop and think about it. And it's true. As teachers, when you teach a lot, you may not practice as much anymore. So I have to really make sure that I'm still practicing, because that's the thing that refills us for them. And then it becomes just the reciprocal thing. But I think that was a kind of a hard one for me to understand for a moment of the why. Because I get as much back from students that are in front of me daily as I'm sure they get from me. And I love that.
There is the saying, isn't there? We teach what we need to learn.
Yes, I think that's probably similar.
Right? I think, because Because the thing is, I think even from an education perspective, it's like if I've attended a seminar and I you know, it's this stuff has buzzed me up, and then I come home and I tell like my partner about it, and just by explaining it reinforces it in my mind.
Yes. Yes.
Because you got to really understand something in order to be able to share it.
But let me ask you this, and I know we need to go soon, but and on that note, so something I try to do a new thing once a year. Last year it was the thing with KG. This year, in January, I was like, what am I going to do this year? Is it a teacher training? And I sort of asked and prayed the universe what's going. Well, what it told me to do was that I needed to start learning about trauma-informed yoga, which is not my lane. And I was instructed to do a training with the Prison Yoga Project, which I believe exists in England, actually, or in the UK. And so I've done that. I've done some online work with them, and that's kind of what, again, back to the service thing. But I really, honestly, I didn't really kind of want to go there in my learning and teaching, and so I think sometimes we're guided into the areas, like you said, that maybe we're not so comfortable with in ourselves. And that's definitely the case with this trauma-informed yoga. You're almost forced to kind of look at some of your own things, you know. I mean, that's yoga in general, right?
It's yoga in general, you know, but then I do think that a lot of us carry a lot of trauma, and I think the word itself doesn't help, because people think of trauma as being really like ugly and
Shamey,
abusive and like, you know, but
victim-y,
actually victim,
all that,
but
I get
actually a
it.
lot of us carry a lot of just being born was traumatic.
Yes. But, you know, just in coming up in life, we've all experienced conflict or hard experiences, people passing. That's part of the journey. And the yoga really has helped me learn to, I guess, accept, or another thing is the word surrender. We sometimes mistake that for giving up, but it's really this acceptance, isn't it?
Acceptance, and it's like the sort of surrendering to the flow, isn't it? You can fight, and we talked about this earlier on, when we're younger, we fight against stuff, when actually if you actually surrender to the flow and trusting, it's like Gabby Bernstein, right? Trust that the universe has your back. And so if you do have faith and you do have that trust, then you still do the work. But if you surrender to the flow of life, I think, you know, there is a destination. We just don't know where it is, and we've got to go.
No, but that's the tricky bit. That's the tricky
that's the hard bit, right? It's actually giving up that control, you know.
And that's the thing that I learned in that wellness integration program, was because I really do like to control my environment as far as, you know, my house is clean or whatever it is. But the word that we've been using lately is flow state. You know, I literally actually I got a massage yesterday for the first time in a long time, and the gentleman was putting hot stones on my back, which really felt good. And I had been thinking about all these projects and things I'm doing, and the image that popped into my mind was stepping stones. You know, that isn't that really kind of what we're doing as we move along through, like, whatever your next project or workshop or training is, and then you know, and so that made it feel like you don't need to know the end stone. You know, you're doing the stones as you go, and that made it feel less or just more accepting of the process instead of the end goal.
Yes, I've always been told that. So just to be in the process, enjoy the process, and let go of the outcome.
It's so much harder to do, though.
It is, and you know, I just think we just do the work, and do the outer and the inner work. I think. And
I just believe you can't ever stop, whatever it is, whether it's reading, just any kind of self reflection. one of the things I took away from that course was journaling again, and how, it all lives up here, but once I kind of release it to the page, it's almost like being on the mat.
Yeah.
You're releasing those feelings or thoughts to the mat. So journaling has really helped. Just things like that, I think that I might have passed over a decade ago. I find these things helpful. It keeps me accountable to the process or the goal or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
You've gotten better
Wonderful.
at that anyway.
So
So
as
are
go
we
on.
good?
Yeah.
Are we
No,
good?
so I was gonna say to wrap up. I mean, I could talk
Okay.
to you for ages.
I know.
And we should do it more often.
We'll
We
pick
should
a
get
different
together.
topic.
Yeah. What's one word that sums up group fitness for you?
Group fitness versus or yoga, or just as a whole? Just the
Um,
whole thing.
whole thing. Well, because even yoga,
Yeah.
we're teaching classes, aren't we? So we're
Yeah.
teaching
Yeah.
groups. People.
Yeah. It's just service. It's
Okay.
still service, whether I'm in the high-end club or the donating my time, it's still for me.
Nice.
Because I know, tonight and this is actually interesting. I don't know if you do this, but before I walk into wherever I'm about to teach, when I'm leaving my car or whatever, I'm walking in, I ask the universe to, first of all, cover me. Just let me help one person tonight. Just one. I could have 20 in the room. And usually, NC, there's this one gal or person with maybe a tear in the eye, and whatever you said tonight, Wendy and Shavasana, that's what I needed to hear. So for me, it's still that one person that I'm making a difference in their day, their week, their life. I don't know. I think it's a ripple. We don't even know sometimes that we're affecting, do
The
we?
ripple effect. No, I know.
Yes.
I
So I would say that one word, service,
service.
still applies to me.
Wonderful.
But
Wonderful.
what's that word for you, Nancy?
Group fitness for me, or groups, it's
Yeah.
life for me.
Yeah.
It's my life, but it's
Yeah.
also it breathes life into people. I think
Sustaining.
groups,
Yes.
groups of people, because
Uh-huh.
even though I'm a massive introvert, I just think massive introvert, there's something very special when a group of people come together, especially if
Yes.
they're like-minded. And
Yes.
it's almost, the breath, right? To breathe in
Magic.
is to inspire, right? Is to breathe in
Yeah.
spirit. And I think that's something special about groups of people where we actually it breathes life. As a teacher, I almost see that, like you say, making a difference in someone's life. But also being a participant, I can draw
Yes.
life and energy from the group as well. So for me, it's life. Yeah.
I love that. That's a perfect note to end on. It was
So
it was an honor and a pleasure to meet you. Have a wonderful day. I'm gonna go.
you're going to go to bed. She's midnight. So and listeners do follow Wendy. You'll find Wendy's links, social media links, websites, everything else in the description to the podcast or wherever you're listening to this from. So thank you so much, and have a
Bhakti
good
yoga.
sleep.
Thank you.